Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man. I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is still out on assignment. I guess he's just a football guy. He comes around football season, big time sports. Everything else, he let us little guys handle that, I suppose. But we're gonna do a unique show today. Show out our skill sets. We're gonna talk baseball. Everybody else wants to get back into football. We might tease something out spring football, but we got time to really get into that. But we're gonna talk about baseball. We'll get into the records, who's off to a fast start, who's not. We'll share a little bit of SWAC, certainly take a deep dive in there. Even look at the SIAC. We'll sneak in there and might give you some updates on even softball in terms of at least who's leading the conference standings, respectively in the SWAC, MEAC. CIAA, SIAC. Softball is a sport that we all have, even the HBCU, which has some other news out there we might get shared today. But welcome to episode 643 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. In short, we just call it HBCU sports pedagogy. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Today we have David L. Rhodes holding down the captain's seat, getting it done for us. Also doing a little bit of producing. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KSWH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. With that being said, my partner in crime, true crime, academic crime, is none other than Professor Charles Bishop. How you doing today?
Doing well, Doc. Doing well. Coming in hot from Texas Southern's midweek game this today.
He's literally hot up.
Yes, indeed. So midweek game for TSU Tigers taking on Houston Tillerson out of the new still in Red River Conference, but they'll be joining the HBCU very soon, July 1st, I believe. So I want to make sure we got that information in there. Fine ball club, but they took one on the nose today.
Yeah, it's tough out there sometimes between the NCAA Division I and NAIA. With that being said, before we get into the full news of HBCU expansion, David, how are you doing today?
Doing great, man. It's a interesting Tuesday for me. No podcasting after the night, so I ain't complaining one bit at all. Week's been kind of going, so I can't complain one bit. But, A&T's winning in some sports. It ain't football season, so this is where we win right now. So
you're going to take it where you can get it right now.
Take it where we can get it, my man. Take it where we can get it.
I like it. I like the attitude. Hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, man. With that being said, fascinating when you don't know what you're going to do with yourself with no podcast tomorrow for the indie show.
Yeah. I'm gonna sprinkle some Indian in the news though. I'm really good at that, so I'll sprinkle some in.
Yeah, so you make sure you get a little touch of. I like that mindset. I like that. I'm gonna go back to you, Charles. What's hot on the news with expansion? It's like expansion seems like it's always in the news.
Yeah, I know. The HBCU Athletic Conference, they add 2 new members, and this comes from hbcuac.org, as the HBCUAC becomes only HBC conference to offer men's soccer championship. The HBCU Athletic Conference proudly announces the addition of Houston Tillotson University and Paul Quinn College as full members effective July 1st, 2025. Both institutions will transition from the Red River Conference, bringing the total membership of the HBCU AC to 15 schools. This expansion marks a significant step in the conference's ongoing commitment to fostering competitive excellence and providing increased championship opportunities for its student athletes. So this is a message from Dr. Kiki Baker Barnes. We are thrilled to welcome Houston Tillotson University and Paul Quinn College to the HBCU Athletic Conference. Both institutions bring a rich tradition of athletic and academic excellence, and their addition strengthens our conference's mission to elevate HBCU athletics while creating more opportunities for student athletes to compete at the highest level. So congratulations to Paul Quinn and Houston Tillotson. Moving on to HBCU.
I heard this is how sometimes long these things take out. And I was asked confidentially not to speak on it at that time because, needed to get some stuff done and see what that looks like. But I heard literally like 2 years ago that both Paul Quinn and Houston Tillotson would be coming to the HBCAC. And so I heard some rumbling at the SWAC tournament. Boy, a lot of back news.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
So, yeah, and it's amazing because it's not always just SWAC. So when I heard this, I was like, oh, okay. I guess it's really going to get done and come up again. And a couple of weeks later, we get the official announcement. So I did get to call Dr. Kiki Baker Barnes and tell her about the great work she's doing, continue to build the HBCUAC. She's excited, obviously, as you would be to get this announcement. It's going to be interesting to see scheduling. Now you can go into pods. You literally go 3 pods of 5 and do some mix. You could do maybe 4 pods with 4-4, 3 type of mix, 4-4-4 and 3 type of mix. And then the question becomes, is expansion finished? But with that being said, it'd be fascinating to see what that looks like. And moving from there, let me go to you, David, and see what are your thoughts on the news today.
I want to give a shout out. So I'm going to sprinkle my indies in. The Aggies got 3 weekly awards in track and field. So shout out to Juliet Nusso from a graduate student. She got the Women's Field Athlete of the Week. She was in the shot put. She threw it 16.42 meters, which is good enough for 16th in the nation and first in the conference in the CAA. And Jason Holmes, who's pretty much been an All-American all season, won Track Athlete of the Week this week. He ran a 13.57 that put him 6th in the nations in the 110 hurdles. And Brandon Hodges, who's also a thrower, he also throws in the shot put. He threw 17.82 meters, 48th in the nation, first in the conference. So shout out to those 3 men and women on their awards this week.
Big time. It is still track season, outdoor track season, and field. So folks getting it done in the mix there. So fascinating to see what that looks like. Charles, any other news that you want to talk about?
Yeah, Diamond Johnson. She earns a spot in the Lilly Women's College All-Star Game. The Norfolk State women's basketball graduate Diamond Johnson will participate in the 2025 Lilly Women's College All-Star Game on April 5th. In Tampa, Florida. The game will take place at Hillsborough Community College at 3 p.m. and it'll be televised live on ESPN2. So I wanted to give a shout out to Diamond Johnson. It says Lilly Women's College All-Star Game will provide 20 of the country's brightest stars one final opportunity to represent their programs and be recognized against the backdrop of the sports championship weekend. So congratulations to Diamond Johnson for being recognized in the All-Star Game.
Congratulations to Diamond Johnson. You're talking about a spectacular career, certainly a great season that she's getting done this year. So well deserved of that accolade. Let me go back to you, David, and see if there's any other additional news that you want to put out there in the ether.
Since we're talking about Norfolk State, and we're not going to get too much football discussions in today, they announced their schedule today. And I think they did a phenomenal job announcing their schedule today. I watched the video. But one thing about their schedule, Doc, South Carolina State is their homecoming game. which is
North Carolina
fascinating.
State.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's scheduled for October 25th. They're going to open up the season against Townsend on Thursday, August 28th in Norfolk. It'll be the third consecutive season that Norfolk and Townsend have squared off, with the Spartans coming out victorious in 2023 and the Tigers returning the favor in 2024. The Battle of the States is going to be Saturday, September 6th against Virginia State. 28-23, Norfolk won that game last year. And their first road game is going to be against Rutgers on the road, which is an FBS opponent, on September 20th. And then they got to head up to Wagner on September 27th. And the Battle of the Bay, Norfolk State and Hampton, scheduled for October 4th at Hampton. And they closed the non-conference stretch against Wofford. And they closed their season against Howard, their other rival, on November 22nd.
He said the other rival.
Look, man, Norfolk got a lot of rivals, man.
Yeah, it's one of the few teams in the MEAC that has multiple rivals that you see in the SWAC, with teams such as Jackson State and Southern, to name a few, even Grambling I would add as well. But fascinating when you talk about that. I'm curious, have you paid attention to Norfolk State's homecoming? Is it usually that late?
I'm not sure. I need to go to some more homecomings outside of my own. I gotta go do some more exploration. I went to Alabama State's last year. I had a blast. So I gotta do some more exploring.
You ever been to Jackson State's homecoming?
I have not been to Jackson State's homecoming.
You need to make a pilgrimage.
A pilgrimage? I'm looking at Boombox Classic, man. I'm being honest, man. I want to try to fit it in this year.
Yeah. Baton Rouge is it'll be in Baton Rouge this year, but that's one to get to.
Yeah, I gotta. That might make the list. I gotta find babysitters. I gotta get the babysitters going, because the previous 2 weeks I'm actually gonna be in North Carolina for Hampton and the school down the road play back to back. So I'm gonna do a 10-day trip down there. And hit both of those down. Both of those. I'll go visit the parents in between, and go to a couple football games in there. So. And I'm trying to get down there for the John Merritt Classic too, down in Nashville. But hopefully I will be moving my daughter in for college. So hopefully we can get that slid a little earlier so I can keep my Nashville trip, because I love going to Nashville. So
I like that. You planning your stuff out. You can have a great football season in terms of home and getting some mixing of other HBCUs and seeing maybe a homecoming here or there. Certainly some big games. Charles, they cracking me up with that North Carolina Central, North Carolina A&T, or North Carolina A&T, North Carolina Central. I don't know.
Like it.
Which one you say
it. Aggie Eagle, man. Do not let Josh fool you around here, okay? Aggie Eagle. All right.
So I'm fascinated with that. I'm used to Prairie View, Texas Southern. It's one format. Obviously, the ones in the SWAC: Alabama State, Alabama A&M, Jackson State Alcorn, Southern Grambling, Jackson State Southern. And I've seen those at different levels, different flavoring, and how they go after each other in some of those cases. But I don't think I've quite got to the point where you've seen folks say the school down the other, school up the road. I'd say that's a little different. Before we close this first segment and take our first break, get into some baseball talk, I did be remiss if I didn't talk about championships. Alabama State men's tennis defeats Southern to claim regular season title. So Alabama State men's tennis capped off a 3-0 weekend at the SWAC Tennis Pod 2 with a 4-0 win over Southern University on Sunday morning. The win over Southern clinched the 2025 SWAC men's tennis regular season title for Alabama State. Credit for all those involved: David Granat, Alexander, Verluck, Loon Oberell, Mathis Amir, Gordon Fran Mussolini, and Mathieu Latiste, getting it done in terms of singles with some wins there. And then you had your doubles where they paired them up to get it done. So shout out to Alabama State in terms of the men's tennis team getting it done. Alabama State, and just finding a way to get these Olympic sports, man, they dominating on that. If they ever add in football, and they just got the SWAC basketball tournament, we got to kind of look at Alabama State, what they're doing around there.
Right.
They winning championships. Shout out to Dr. Jason Cable, quietly getting it done on that side of the ledger. With that being said, let's take our first break. I'll come back on the other side and get you into some baseball talk. See if we can get Brandon to join us. I don't know how he's going to get into the baseball talk. Hopefully he follows this since Tennessee State does not have baseball. They have flirted saying they're going to bring it back. We'll ask him what is the
hockey is first.
Status of
hockey is first. Hockey is first.
We can't even get an HBCU rival with hockey. We'll be right back after this break.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
There's a shot. It might be. It could be. Right field. Grand slam. What a shot. That's how you get hot, young fella.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. All you guys at BCSN, we really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food? Like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell them mama hungry.
The Cavil Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cavil.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Heading into Sunday's rubber game with Grambling, Jackson State relied on his brilliant pitching that was on display starting Friday with Brandon Hastings. Despite losing the first game of the doubleheader, JSU pitchers combined for 10 strikeouts against the G-Men. They followed that up with 18 strikeouts in the nightcap. Eric Elliott struck out 13 hitters in 6 innings while allowing just 2 hits. Meanwhile, JSU took a 2-0 lead into the 7th and added 3 more, including a sacrifice fly to right field from Joseph Eichelberger, scoring Jordan McClatty, making it 5-3 JSU. The Blue and White Tigers finished off the scoring in the 8th when Anthony Brown doubled down the left field line, bringing in Robert Tate for the 6-3 lead. Eric Gonzalez picked up his first save of the season with 4 strikeouts in 1 2/3 inning, including the game-ending strikeout. In game 3, Gonzalez picked up where he left off. Gonzalez struck out 4 over 3 innings of work. JSU scored early when Tate laid down a perfect bunt, bringing in Pierre Cabral for the 1-0 lead. However, Jackson State trailed Grambling 4-2 heading into the bottom of the 6th. JSU took the lead in the bottom of the 8th. Joseph Eichelberger sent an RBI single into center field, scoring Letty Alvarez. And Wilbert Perez doubled off the center field wall, bringing home Eichelberger. JSU pitchers struck out 39 batters in the 3-game series, and Jackson State takes 2 out of 3 from the G-men with Sunday's 6-4 win.
Well, we needed to win a series. We had been, on the cuffs of doing it, the past 2 weekends, and just trying to get these guys to play right and do some things with something on the line. Yes, we did have a couple guys that actually finally came through, and that's been, sometimes it's a struggle, and you need tight game to get you kind of going. And we had Joseph. He stepped up and got an RBI, and we had a couple other guys that come in and contribute on the mound. Steve hadn't been on the mound since the first weekend of the season, so it was good to get him back and all the momentum he creates. So we're excited about having those guys back and be able to perform for us.
Big series win for Jackson State over Grambling, taking 2 out of 3. And they got that rubber match, if you would, on Sunday to improve their record to 4-5 in the conference play, 16-10 overall. We'll get a little more involved in that, but shout out to Jackson State University's Rob J., who serves as the Assistant Athletic Director for Broadcasting and Video Services. Voiceover giving you some updates there. Charles, the Tigers got big win. Last year we were there in Atlanta for that championship game, which was a magical championship game between the two rivals that literally went down to a run scoring late in that contest. A beautifully played game, big hits, everything you'd want in that game, emotions that seemed fly high. Credit to Grambling for winning that championship, but Jackson State got a little bit back, and more important for them in terms of where they were standing in the conference, sitting at 2-4. We talked about the fact that they needed to get a series win going into it, and give us a little indication of just how important you think that win was and how it could play out the rest of the season.
That was huge. I mean, you're talking about a team that really can hit the ball. When you're talking about Grambling, I think right now they're a little bit down in the statistics as far as overall hitting, but Jackson State is a good ball club that surprisingly it kind of started out 2-4 thus far in conference play, but they needed a series like that against the previous SWAC champions. Like you said, going into that series 2-4 and was able to take the series from Grambling, and we'll see if they can kind of springboard. But I think the thing that jumped out for me is the pitching in the series. That's something we kind of talked about going into this past weekend. And even looking at the statistics today, there are 45 players in the conference batting above 300 right now. Early part of the season, I mean, the hitting is just whooping the pitching. There are a lot of great hitters in this conference, but Jackson State's pitching got a bit of a measure of revenge this past weekend in terms of number of strikeouts and just being able to hold a tough Grambling offense down.
Yeah, good information when you talk about that. I'm going to share and get everybody's perspective after we kind of talk about the conference standings, some matchups that took place this weekend that we were looking forward to. That was one of them. But with that being said, I heard you had somebody give you a homework assignment or provide you some homework to talk about what we were used to seeing. East versus West particularly became really a big interesting topic with the expansion of Bethune-Cookman and FAMU. We were one of the first groups out there while a lot of folks were getting excited about football, rightfully so. We talked about what this could do to baseball in this conference, and it certainly had taken it up a notch in terms of what was the Eastern Division versus the Western Division. Obviously, they play a full conference slate, and they're no longer in divisions in baseball. Still in softball, you see that. But what that being said, what did you find out when you did the homework assignment there in terms of Eastern Division versus the Western Division or vice versa?
Yeah, amongst cross-divisional conference games only, the East is 22-14 versus the West. So, like you said, the balance of power it looks as though it's still in that old SWAC East in terms of taking a look at those teams at the top of the conference. And sure enough, you got Florida A&M, you got Bethune-Cookman sitting 1-2 in conference play right now. They both had big weekends this past weekend. Right behind them is Texas Southern and Alabama State. So Texas Southern is that one Western team sandwiched in between the top three Eastern teams.
I'm talk a little bit more about that, Charles. Again, what was that record?
22-14, 61%. They won 61% of the game.
61. That means basically you run in the series 2 out of 3, right, guys?
2 out of 3. That's it.
Essentially, right underneath that, for those that are truly into mathematics. I don't want to throw you off with my math being a little bit under the percentage, but I said close. With that being said, I'm gonna go to you, Dave, and get your thoughts a little bit about SWAC baseball in terms of the top teams. FAMU. Remember your days in terms of the MEAC, that became a pretty big rival, not just in terms of what was taking place on the football side of things, but particularly in baseball late when FAMU started rebuilding the program. North Carolina A&T started coming on strong. Bethune-Cookman has always been there. They sit in second at 7-2 behind FAMU. That's 8-1. They're tied with Texas Southern at 7-2. Alabama State had a big series against Pine Bluff. They sit at 6-3. Grambling State, after losing 2 out of 3 we just talked about, fell to 6-3. Jackson State sits there at 4-5. Mississippi Valley sits at 4-5, probably surprising a lot of folks. And Prairie View, that was sitting at 4-2, got swept by FAMU going to Tallahassee. They've dropped in all the way from being in the top 4. Now they're just outside of that bottom 4 at 4-5. Southern is probably the surprise on the opposite side in terms of where they are sitting at the bottom 4 at 3-6. Arkansas Pine Bluff at 3-6. Alabama A&M at 2-7. Alcorn State has not got a conference victory as of yet, so they sit at 0-9. That includes being swept by Mississippi Valley State in that rivalry tilt this past weekend. So, David, what are your thoughts in terms of the baseball, this new format? Any thoughts thus far?
I will say that, like, the Florida schools has always been consistently good when they were in the MEAC. A&T did a pretty good job on their way out the door before they left, just like Florida and Bethune did when it came to winning the conference there. But Florida A&M, Bethune-Cookman has always been terrors. And so I'm not shocked they're at the top of the standings right now in the SWAC from that standpoint. I am taken aback by Southern, though, because I know Southern typically has been pretty good in that conference.
Yep.
And so for me, that I'm taken aback by that. Even without the East-West divisions, I'm fascinated by the fact that the East is still doing what they're supposed to do. So
he said what they're supposed to do.
No, I mean,
like that. The folks in the West are like, huh?
Yeah, I know they are, but I mean that's how it is in football too. So it's kind of wild to think that it goes from football, it just transitions right into baseball.
And what's interesting, sandwiched in between there, is basketball. In basketball, it never was in West, but we always would look at it in terms of the division because everything else was. And basketball belonged to the West.
Yeah.
Until this year, Alabama State has been a decade, literally over a decade, since somebody in the quote unquote Eastern Division has won a championship. So you're right. It's funny that it bookends like that.
But I will say this about Southern. Keep an eye on their schedule because their schedule has started off pretty difficult in regards to conference play. They had a series against Alabama State. They lost 2 of 3 against Alabama State at home. Then they went on the road to Prairie View.
Yep.
Lost 2 out of 3 to Prairie View. They go on the road this weekend. They got Bethune-Cookman. That's going to be tough. And then
that ain't going to be fun for them.
Yeah, but the schedule softens a bit once you get on the back end because you'll have Alcorn, you have Mississippi Valley, you have Alcorn, so they got an opportunity to kind of.
How you gonna do that to Valley? Valley say we 4-5.
Yo, Valley out here on a 3-game winning streak.
You want to
slandering Valley?
I'm gonna tell Mike that you gave him some love. I got you. Brandon, get in a little bit of this baseball talk and show up. You know what I'm saying? We like to tease you a little bit about Tennessee State. Y'all forgot how to play baseball around them folks. Y'all worry about ice hockey.
Well, I look at it like this couple things with basically with them going away from divisions. What that means is if you're you stink or you're mediocre, you can't hide behind your divisions in order to slide into come conference tournament time. That means you got to be good from day one to the end of the season. So it separates the contenders and the pretenders from a conference standpoint. And then, David's kind of already touched on it. The Florida schools, when you look at FAMU's 8-1 in conference, and strange enough, they're the only team in the SWAC that has a record over 500. Bethune-Cookman is right there at 14-14, but
Jackson
they're
sneaks in there. They're at 16-10. So
Jackson stay 16-10.
Oh,
they in the
you're
middle
right,
of the
you're
rankings,
right.
but yeah.
I can't read. I
didn't. When I saw Charles' eyes looking up,
yo, Charles about to come at your neck, man.
I was like, man, let me help you out. Look, he feels some kind of way about them Tigers.
Look, I can feel him looking at me.
I don't want no problem. I don't want no problem. They get their way. They just take you off the schedule. That's all right.
Brandon, don't mind me. I just looked over. I was gonna nod.
Look, let me retract my previous statement for y'all kick me out.
I'm just saying, I don't want no problem.
But no, you know what? For me, and like I said, I've mostly always been a basketball and a football guy. And I started really paying attention a couple years ago to SWAC baseball, just kind of covering it back then. Yeah. And for those who haven't paid attention, please do, because it is some phenomenal baseball being played in this conference. And for me, I think one of the things that I like about it is, and this is a complaint that I hear about some of my people who watch Major League Baseball, the strategies that you used to see, the shifting of fielders, sacrificing to move runners, walking, and all of those things that you used to see. You see that in every game. If we want to walk this guy or whatever, and it really, for me, it made it more intriguing. It made it more enjoyable to watch. So if you haven't checked out any baseball of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, please do. I can assure you will enjoy it.
Oh, you're gonna have to play some defense. You're gonna have to play some defense. They're gonna play some small ball.
Right.
You got to have,
they're gonna put some speed on them bases. So you better be able to, you're talking about going first to third. You see that quite regularly. So you better have some fielders to be able to play, or stretching that second to home. It's fascinating to see if somebody can steal an RBI to help a batter out. But with that being said, I did, on the serious side, there was some talk about Tennessee State. Obviously, this was before some of the most recent news financially is discussed. But have you heard any update about them still looking at baseball coming back?
I heard some rumblings about it, but with everything that's going on, I think right now they got some kind of bigger fish to fry.
That's fair.
And, I think the focus more or less, obviously, is on football, but then, on the hockey program and trying to get that off and running. I'm sure y'all talked about with the donation that Benjamin Crump just made to the program. So they're in full fundraising mode, trying to get the financial resources that they need as they look to kind of do that. But yeah, I heard about baseball. I heard about a couple years ago potentially bringing swimming back as well. So we'll see if that starts to happen. And
we only have one swimming program out there now, which is Howard University.
Yep.
Before them, we had 3 A&T. That's why David's kind of shaking his head. FAMU were the last 3 at the Division I level. And obviously, back in the day, you had some great programs: Texas Southern, Texas State. I mean, you had significant history. Prairie View with big time programs. And I used to like their names because they would come up kind of like what you see in baseball with the dirt bags or whatever. The Texas Southern Sharks.
It's for the swim programs, man. It's a soft spot for me because when we made the move to the CAA, that was like one of the first questions that was asked.
Oh wow!
Because it was like, hey, they do swimming.
That's right.
Are you bringing back the swim teams? So
that's a good question.
It was brought up pretty significantly when we moved to the CAA.
Well, why do you think the swimming programs got on the chopping block?
Well, I think it boiled down to they wanted to add back golf and tennis, and something had to go. and so that was like the thing that went. So when they brought back tennis and golf, women had to go. There was other options too, and those other options were they had a bigger contingency to make sure that they stayed.
I know a lot of folks who also transitioned as they were moving from their rec centers, and some folks were not bringing pools back. So then the place of where you're going to actually have your swimming practices, similar to when you have some of those places that were not doing golf because of the expensive travel, certain not having one on course, or even tennis. You see a little bit about that. For those programs that were able to kind of maintain those facilities, the cost of rebuilding them is a whole different cost. So you had those things come into play. So that's a great question. Probably something that we need to dig a little deeper in.
I always remind Aggies, we don't have a bowling alley on campus, but we do have a swimming pool.
Yeah. Yep. So there's a lot right there. Quickly, Brandon, I'd be remiss if we didn't get a chance to ask you this. We haven't asked you on this show. I'm sure you talked about it on the Indy report. But what are your thoughts on the new football coach?
I thought it was a tremendous hire. And I know there was a lot of talk, amongst the rank and file, and even from some people that I talked to within the program on people that they wanted, that were currently on staff.
Always the case.
Yeah. And even some of the players, from what I've heard, that them getting in the portal, coming back out of the portal was slightly contingent on who got that first seat in terms of the head coaching position.
Yeah, that's right.
But no, I thought it was a great hire. I think his resume speaks for itself. When you look at everywhere he's gone, he's won. And that speaks a lot to me. I don't care if you come from Mars. If you can win, I'll take you.
Just don't win. Just don't win week one. That's all I ask. No winning week one. You can win all the other weeks, just not week one.
We need a week one win.
No, we need it more than anybody else. There's one program that need that win. It's us. But I will say, that was a home run hire for you. Considering the circumstances of when Eddie George left, that was a home run hire.
I agree with you 100%. Great point. And I thought you said it volume, and it indicated a lot about those kids getting back out of the portal, to your point. Let's take our second break, come back on the other side. We're still going to talk a little bit more baseball. We're going to shift to D2, look at the SIC. But I got a question before we get into the SIC rankings to get your thoughts in terms of how having baseball programs to fill out your schedule in terms of rivalries and maintaining that excitement, having it from fall football and then being able to close with baseball versus conferences like the MEAC and CIAA, unfortunately, that do not have baseball. All of them, fortunately, have softball. And then when you look at your independents with Hampton and Tennessee State, they don't have baseball. A&T does, so you still have that ability to chase and create rivalries if you have it. Unfortunately, North Carolina Central dropped their baseball program, so you don't necessarily have that rivalry to be able to work with as you have in your other sports. But I want you to think about that and give me your thoughts as we come back after this break.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KeaversVoice.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids' apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
When it comes to professional learning, teachers deserve better. From the leader in online learning, Stride brings you the Stride Professional Development Center, an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that gives teachers choice and flexibility, allowing them to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. It's time you take charge of your learning. Visit us today to get started.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Wanted to get your thoughts on that question I asked. I'm gonna go with you, Dave. What are your thoughts in terms of how that has affected the SWAC in regards to maintaining that talk and rivalry talk, excitement for the conference, being able to book in the season with starting with football when people get lathered up and then closing it with baseball?
I think the SWAC benefits from the fact that y'all have all your teams. And I think being the SWAC of what it is and the culture of what it is, I think
Did you lock the door?
the fan,
Yeah.
I think the fan base is the fan engagement is very important for all the sports. Because I think at some point for the SWAC, it has that opportunity to be a revenue generating sport potentially over time if you just get the engagement with the fan base for baseball, and let it transition over. Now, like for A&T standpoint, being in the CAA and not having too many MEAC schools to schedule, right? Like we do make a conscious effort to make sure that we do either play Maryland Eastern Shore or Delaware State to open up the season, or try to play as many teams as possible within the MEAC and try to get them on the schedule. Our main rivals do not have baseball, like you mentioned prior, like the school down the road doesn't, South Carolina State doesn't. So it makes it challenging from that aspect, but we always try to make a conscious effort. One thing that our AD, when we made the move to the CAA, he said he wanted to make sure we continue to play our MEAC opponents in the out of conference play if they would love to play us. So we've always, we always do a series. Like this year, we did a series with Delaware State. We ended up sweeping. They had to cancel the third game due to weather, I'm assuming. But we always tend to play our former MEAC rivals and opponents in the out of conference play.
Makes sense. I like it, Brandon.
Again, I'm kind of out of my depth on this one since we don't have baseball. So.
You have softball though. I mean, you play. I pick on Josh all the time. I'm like, we just want to. I know you beat us in football, but we're gonna beat y'all in everything else. Every single time you play us, we're just gonna beat you. You show up on the track field, we're gonna beat you. Softball, we're gonna beat you. Basketball, women's or men, we're just gonna beat you.
On every other sport, I like.
We'll just beat you in everything else.
Good stuff. Go ahead, Brandon.
Look, I was softball. They're getting it done. We had the co-pitcher and the co-player of the week in the OVC this week. So softball is out there getting it done.
Congratulations. Nice.
But I'll say this from a baseball perspective as an observer, in terms of kind of, like I said, booking the season with those rivals, because when you get to the end of the season, if you've locked up, your placing or whatever, it can just be, just a malaise. All right, we just got to get through these games to get to whatever. But if you're playing a rival at the end, then that's something you can't sleepwalk your way through. And like Dave touched on, it's going to give those games at the end of the season a little extra and that's going to obviously juice up the players a little more, because whether you could be 0-27, but as long as you beat your rival for that season-ending series, at least you can hang your hat on that going into the off season. And then, in terms of your fans, when, the rival people will come out more for those rivalry type games. So I think from that standpoint of kind of ending your season with that, it still gives everybody something to kind of look forward to, whether you're going to the tournament or whether, after the season, you'll be packing up the bags and the cleats and starting your off-season program. So that's kind of my take on it.
Well, the one other thing that's fascinating about it too, like when you look at baseball for A&T, they're 4-2 right now in the conference, and like this is a pretty good start for us. We normally are struggling. We'll catch 1 or 2 here and there, but right now we're second in the conference right now. And the thing that's fascinating is that we really want to see us like make the playoffs. Like we haven't made the CAA postseason since we've been in the conference. So like I think that's the first step, right? Like I think only the top 6 teams get in. So that is something to shoot for when you don't have the rivals. But with our baseball program, it's been struggling pretty rough since we've been jumping conferences. So it's good to see that we're actually like on the winning side right now, and hopefully we can continue that throughout conference play. I mean, we got some tough teams coming down the pike, but we'll see.
What's kind of the step to get, I guess, to make the next step in the baseball program for A&T?
I'll be honest, man, and we've been talking about this for years. It's about the resources. I mean, like we got to get that stadium redone. I think, and shout out to Coach Ben Hall. The running joke I have is that he's the safest coach at A&T. He's been able to pull off some of the talent that he brings. Like Tyler Smith just won Rookie of the Week in the CAA.
Yep.
Like some of the talent that he brings in.
Yeah, that's true.
They are phenomenal baseball players, phenomenal hitters, able to get players drafted every year. So he does a phenomenal job when it comes to getting talent in there. Phenomenal job. We just got to start stringing up some wins and start getting some victories from that standpoint. But I think the big thing for us is resources. Once they redo stadium, like once they redo the war, I think a lot of things will change. But they're in the process of redoing that, and it's been taking time and years, and it's been a challenge when it comes to getting things done with the state.
Charles, I wanted to get your thoughts on this in regards to that. We talk about fan engagement in our research, and we talked about thinking about asking a question on that, and that's where it's come up for me. I've looked at this over the years, just anecdotally. So I'm fascinated to see your thoughts in regards to how this plays out. I think SIEC has the benefit of having baseball, full slate of teams that maintains those rivalries and maintains, more importantly, fan engagement. Obviously, with as much as we follow the SWAC, we've seen that. And you've seen the rivalries, and you have, like David says, not only several teams, you have the whole allotment team. So that means you have those rivalries, whether it's basketball, men's and women's, and they play out so they can cross over in-state rivalries. Texas Southern Prairie View, obviously Bethune-Cookman, FAMU, public-private in terms of state matchups there. Obviously, you do that for each state. 3 of them in Mississippi. You have the rivalry, Alabama State, Alabama A&M plays this week. What are your thoughts in terms of how that galvanizes the interest of fans to maintain somewhat of a level of fan engagement throughout a academic athletic year?
I think it's huge, and I think the unique thing with baseball is, especially for a lot of SWAC fans, there are a lot of long-time SWAC fans that have been following their respective teams. In a lot of ways, especially when you don't have a minor league team or something that can distract you away from your school during baseball season, these people just sort of grow with the baseball team. So I think I've seen that up close, especially when you start talking about Southern Jackson State. There are fans who can easily reach back into the 70s and can just walk you through who came through with pitching staffs and great batters and things of that nature. So to be able to hold on and maintain that core audience, I think that's huge for SWAC baseball.
Yeah, want to give you that, and we certainly going to get into some SIEC baseball love. We're going to take our last break and we'll come on back and we'll do just that and talk about the standings, looking at Savannah State. With the surprise for me is Albany State in terms of where they sit in the standings. We'll be right back after this last break, and we'll just talk about a little Division II love on the baseball side and see if we can sneak in a little bit of softball for the women as well. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this last break.
It's like a loot machine. All around town, people trying to get down. It's like a loot machine.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Sonia from She Say Sports. Make sure to check us out every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on Black College Sports Network, YouTube, and Linktree. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We have the professors in the building. That's Professor Bishop, Professor King, Professor Rhodes. With that being said, let's jump right into it to the SIAC. We have Spring Hill sitting at 8-2, really dominating the conference and has a good overall record, 24-9. They swept their last component. They actually have swept 5 of their 7 SIAC teams. But Savannah State was one of those teams that was least able to get a win in their series. They sit at 15-6, 18-9, winning record overall. And Edward Waters down there in Florida at the Division II level, also playing some good baseball. They're 14-7 in the conference race. 21-13. You have Miles, 12-7, and something I hadn't ever really seen before. I guess maybe a cancellation for rain. 17-14-1 overall with the tie there that just threw me off. Benedict sits at 10-9, 13-9. Albany State, the surprise for me after what they've done in the conference. Coach there, they've taken a little step back. It'll be interesting to see can they get things going and what does that mean for tournament play. They're usually in that mix, but they sit at just 11-10, 16-17 overall. You do have Lane that is at 500, 9-9, 9-18. Rest of the team's a little bit behind that just because I know AD is listening. I will shout out Clark Atlanta and Morehouse. They sit at 9-12. Tuskegee at 13. We'll close it out with Lemoyne Oling at 6-14 in the conference race in Kentucky State. I did able to scratch off one win, so they sit at 1-19. So,
yeah, I got a best what they need about Morehouse because they lead the conference in hitting, and they got 12 more home runs than everybody else in the conference. Yet they 9-12. You got to talk to them pitchers, man. You ain't supposed to
you got to talk to more than just the pitchers. You got to talk to them fielders too.
You got 53 home runs on the season.
They hit the cover on the ball, but they can't. They can't stop nobody else.
They can't pitch.
What are y'all thoughts in terms of Albany State struggling this year?
Huge surprise for me. You're talking about one of those teams that's always in the mix over there in the SIAC, and it's almost kind of jarring when you start looking at where they are in conference standings. It's like looking at Southern, where they are in the SWAC standings. It's like it's kind of surprising to see where they are. Very interested in kind of keeping an eye on Savannah State, Florentino Burgos. Who left Florida Memorial, now coaching over there at Savannah State, has them right there in the mix of 15-6 thus far.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see what they would get done in the tournament. Brandon, quietly, people don't realize that you know a little bit about the Georgia baseball, understanding how it's played over there in the area. What are your thoughts in terms of Savannah with the new coach coming over Florida Memorial had a lot of success, and then just the downturn it looks like with Albany State.
Well, why is it kept? I know when you talk about Georgia, you typically hear about football, even basketball. I know even where I'm from in Albany, there's some talent, some baseball talent down in the Good Life City. But I'm going to start with the negative first in terms of Albany State. It is kind of surprising to see them take a step back like they have. And like I said, perennially, they have been one of those teams that have been up around the top portion of the conference in recent years. And now, granted, they haven't had the success often that they would have liked in the conference tournament. So it is kind of surprising to see it. But then when your ERA is 7.29, if we just take a look at that, could play a role in why they're in the state that they're in. Say if you can't get nobody out and everybody's hitting everything that you throw all over the yard, you're going to have a tough time winning games. But it's Savannah State. Obviously, you look at them, they're getting it done. And, I mean, looking at again, they're getting the talent in there, even, coming. I don't know if it's some residual talent from maybe coming out of the MEAC, but they're getting it done. But shout out to Spring Hill, who's come in and been the class of the conference.
Yeah.
This particular season, they are really
taking that next step. They've been right on the precipice. They hadn't. Albany State has kind of stayed in their way in Florida. Edward Waters doing that. Let me get to you, David, as we get ready to close things out. What's your final thoughts here?
Two things, man. A 4-game lead is diabolical right now. It is. Like it just is. And I got to give a shout out to Edward Waters, man. Like they just converted to Division II not too long ago. And they're out here doing what they got to do.
Yeah, they are.
Good call.
It is a Florida thing, obviously. You got Bethune and FAMU doing their thing up there in the SWAC. You got Edward Waters out here saying, look, man, we can do play some baseball too over here.
Well said. Let me give you an update on the NAIA side. HBCU AC, particularly since we shown them some love with their expansion early. To be interesting as they bring in Paul Quinn, Houston Tillins. They both play baseball. But on the baseball side, Talladega continues to do what they do, 24-11, 18-2. Only team with the winning record in the East. So we'll move to the West with a couple of teams that are playing some pretty decent baseball. You have Wiley, Texas, sitting at 22-13 overall, 14-4 in the West Division. Behind them, Suno, 16-12, 14-4, tied with Wiley. And then you have Dillard that just brought back baseball a couple of years ago with a winning record, 18-14, 12-6. Shout out to those winning programs. And I'll put it there. We'll come back Thursday, really take a look at some key matchups. And then we'll also get into some softball updates more, providing you that on Thursday. Charles, final statement.
Yeah, and keep an eye on Black College World Series in terms of they're all sort of doing sort of a bracket, if you will, of the Division II teams and NAIA teams that have an opportunity to get to the Black College World Series. Of course, Black College World Series this year is going to be played in Jackson, Tennessee. So I'm just kind of keeping an eye on those teams that are independent and playing in those various NAIA and the Division II conferences in terms of their standings, in terms of getting to the Black College World Series.
I'm really glad you brought that up. It's going to be fascinating to see which one of those teams get a chance to get those bids, play good enough season, and things don't quite go well enough for tournament play where they get the NCAA bid. Then they still have an opportunity for postseason format. I really love the uniqueness of the Black College World Series. As you said, you have your two bracketed divisions. You have your Division II side and your NAIA side, and then the champion out of each side plays each other for overall Black College World Series, as we would call in terms of the mid-major division, as Black College Nines, the Division II. Voting is up, so it'll be interesting to see as the Black College Nines poll rankings will come out. With that being said, we're going to call it a show and say thank you for listening inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, come from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. I told you, give you a deep dive into baseball in terms of what teams look like. Wait until Thursday when we talk about some of these teams leading in terms of ERA, batting average, where we really get into some of the players that are showing out and give them some love. And then we get a chance to get into some of the weekend series to see how this thing starts to churn as we get close to that midway point. It'll be fascinating to see what that looks like in this new format where you have all 10 teams in 12 teams in the standings. Top 8 teams go to Birmingham. Rickwood Park will be fascinating to see how it goes down. The SWAC tournament is always fascinating, particularly when you get towards that championship game and those last games. Man, you have some really good matchups and a lot of energy at the ballpark. With that being said, go ahead, Charles.
Shout out to Joe Core, threw a no-hitter this past week for Bethune-Cookman,
Yeah.
so I want to make sure I pointed that out. So kudos to young man for no-hitting the team. So
yes, we got to get that on the record. How you talk baseball and not throwing a no-hitter?
you got to get that in.
Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Vill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is still out on assignment, so we brought in Brandon King. Showed his little knowledge. Yes, they don't have a baseball team at Tennessee State, but he still knows baseball, particularly black college baseball. Shout out to Brandon, getting you some love there, showing out his talent. And David L. Rose producing and making sure that you get your updates from the independents. In this case, it's just one independent in baseball when you think about it. It's amazing when we only have one Division I private HBCU baseball program out there. That is Bethune-Cookman University. So with that being said, follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's Facebook and Instagram, DrKenyattaCavil, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Facebook and YouTube. That's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, I should say. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Brandon?
Lecture.
David?
Dismissed.
Appreciate y'all.